The signal came through at 400 hours Galactic Standard Time. It cut through every emergency channel in the sector, a desperate pulse of sound and data that made monitoring systems scream with urgency. On a dozen different worlds, in 100 different languages, the message was the same. Help us. Please. Anyone. The Galactic Council's Emergency Response Center lit up like a festival. Operators from 20 species scrambled to their stations. The massive screens on the wall showed the source. HFY 7, a small ice moon on the edge of explored space. A Velthrin research colony, population 37. Hiren was the first to speak. The young Velthrin diplomat stood at her station, her silver skin pale with fear. She had family on that colony, her brother, 2 cousins. She pressed the communication button with a shaking hand. "This is Research Station HFY 7, the recorded message played. The voice belonged to the colony director. It crackled with interference. "Life support failure. Main systems down. Oxygen reserves critical. We have 72 hours, maybe less. 4 younglings on site, please, someone, anyone." The recording ended. Silence filled the response center. Then everyone moved at once. Hiren sent the data to the council chamber. Other operators pulled up everything they had on HFY 7. The screens filled with numbers and images. None of it was good. Within an hour, the council had gathered. Representatives from 43 species filled the massive chamber. They floated, sat, stood, or existed in their various ways around the circular room. At the center, a hologram of HFY 7 rotated slowly. It looked beautiful, blue and white, covered in ice and frozen methane seas. Deadly. The Nethic's representative spoke first. Her crystalline body chimed as she moved. "The data is clear. Surface temperature averages negative 180 degrees. Gravity is 1.8 times Earth standard. The atmospheric storms disable most technology. Seismic activity is constant." A Porvathi delegate drifted forward. Its gaseous form shimmered green and gold. "We have calculated rescue probability. Current models show 0% success with conventional methods. The conditions are incompatible with 98% of known species physiology." "What about drones?" someone asked. "Automated supply drops." A Minrathi engineer, her 6 arms moving across a data tablet, shook her head. "The storms would destroy anything we send. Even if a drone survived entry, the landing would fail. The ground is unstable. Ice shifts. Crevasses open without warning." Hiren stood at the edge of the chamber. Her voice cut through the technical discussion. 37 people, 4 of them are younglings. We're talking about abandoning them." The council leader, an ancient being whose species name took 3 minutes to pronounce, spoke gently. "We are not abandoning them, young one. We are facing reality. Some situations have no solution. The conditions on HFY 7 are beyond what any rescue team can survive." "Then we send supplies," Hiren said. "Something, anything." "We have explained," the Nethic said. Her tone was patient but firm. "Nothing we send will reach them intact. The atmospheric entry alone would destroy most cargo vessels. The storms would scatter any supplies across hundreds of kilometers. Even if something landed near the colony, the cold would freeze most materials we might send. Batteries fail at those temperatures. Most foods crystallize. Water turns to solid ice in seconds." The Porvathi added, "We could perhaps extend their time by days at most. But there is no planet close enough to launch a successful supply mission in their remaining time window. The nearest Velthrin world is 6 days away at maximum speed." Hiren looked around the chamber. Every face, every form showed the same thing: sympathy, sadness, but also resignation. They had already decided. "So that's it?" she asked. "We just let them die?" "We honor their sacrifice to science," the council leader said. "We remember their contributions. We will construct a memorial. Their names will be—" "They're not dead yet," Hiren's voice echoed through the chamber. They're alive, they're breathing, they're calling for help, and we're planning funerals." The silence that followed felt heavy. Finally, a Velthran elder spoke. His voice was old and tired. "Sometimes, child, the universe gives us problems with no answers. This is one of them. We cannot save them. Accepting this is not cruelty. It is wisdom." The vote came quickly. The council declared Research Station Kethai 7 irrecoverable. They authorized memorial preparations. They sent a message to the colony: "We hear you. We honor you. We cannot reach you. May your final hours be peaceful." Hiren left the chamber. She couldn't watch them plan the memorial. She walked through the station's corridors past windows that showed the stars. Somewhere out there, her brother was looking at those same stars, counting his hours, waiting for help that would never come. She found herself in an observation room, empty, quiet. She pressed her head against the cold window and tried not to cry. That's when the new message came through. It appeared on every council channel simultaneously, short, direct, in the simple trade language most species used for basic communication. "Distress signal received. Kethai 7, we're going in. ETA 48 hours. The signature said, "Human Frontier Response Station, Commander Deho commanding." Hiren's head snapped up. Humans, the Deathworlders. She pulled up everything the council had on them, the species from Earth. The ones who came from a world so hostile it had made them strange. Aggressive gravity, extreme temperatures, unstable weather, abundant predators. They had evolved in conditions that would kill most species. The council had called them dangerous, reckless, unpredictable. At the Human Frontier Response Station, Deho stood in the command center with his crew. The distress signal played on repeat. He had listened to it 6 times. Each time, the desperation in the colony director's voice made his jaw tighten. "Boss," Yunjai said, "she was their pilot, the best in 3 sectors. You seeing what I'm seeing? Those conditions are insane." "I see them," Deho said. T-Min, the medic, pulled up his own data. "We'll need full thermal gear, emergency medical supplies for Velthran biology, extra oxygen, and we need to calculate weight carefully. The gravity's going to be rough." Bora, their engineer, was already working. Her hands flew across her station. "I can modify the shuttle, reinforce the heat shields, add redundant systems, but we're still going to take a beating on entry." Jinwoo, the rescue specialist, studied the topography. "Landing's going to be the hardest part. That surface is a nightmare. We might have to set down kilometers away and go on foot." "Can we do it?" Deho asked. His crew looked at each other. Then one by one they nodded. "It'll be dangerous," Yunjai said. "It'll be cold," T-Min added. "It'll probably hurt," Bora said with a slight smile. Jinwoo shrugged. "So, a normal Tuesday." Deho allowed himself a small smile. Then he opened a channel to the Galactic Council. "This is Commander Deho of the Human Frontier Response. We have received the distress signal from Kethai 7. We are launching a rescue mission. ETA 48 hours. The response came quickly. Warning, legal disclaimers, calculations showing why it was impossible, reminders about the conditions, suggestions that they reconsider. Deho closed the channel without responding. He looked at his crew. "Let's get to work. We've got 37 people waiting for us." The shuttle bay filled with activity. The crew loaded gear, ran checks, modified systems. In the command center, Deho filed their flight plan. He didn't ask for permission. He just informed the council they were going. 20 minutes later, the shuttle launched. It burned hard toward Kethai 7, a small metal ship heading into conditions that the entire Galactic Council had declared unsurvivable. Across the galaxy, beings watched, some with hope, most with the grim certainty that they were about to witness 5 more deaths. But the humans didn't care about calculations. They didn't care about probability. Someone had sent an SOS. That was all that mattered. The approach to Kethai's 7 took 46 hours. Every species with monitoring equipment watched. The galactic networks carried the feed. Some watched because they hoped. Most watched because they expected to see humans die, and they wanted to understand what made these Deathworlders so reckless. In the shuttle, the crew was quiet. They had been traveling for nearly 2 days. The cabin was cramped, filled with equipment and supplies. Bora had worked through most of the trip, reinforcing systems and checking redundancies. T-Min had prepared medical equipment for Velthran biology, studying their physiology, learning what they would need. Jinwoo reviewed maps and terrain data, planning routes through ice and stone. Yoonjae sat in the pilot's seat, her eyes on the growing moon ahead. Di-ho moved between them, checking, helping, thinking. He knew what everyone was saying, that this was impossible, that they would die trying. He had read the Council's reports. He knew the numbers, but numbers didn't scream for help. People did. Coming up on the outer atmosphere, Yoonjae announced. Her hands moved across the controls. Everyone strapped in. They secured themselves. The shuttle had been built for rough conditions, but Kethai's 7 was going to test every system. Bora had added extra shielding, but there were limits to what they could do. Beginning entry, Yoonjae said. The shuttle hit the upper atmosphere, and everything went wrong immediately. The storms the Council had warned about weren't just storms. They were walls of violence, atmospheric chaos that existed nowhere else in the sector. Wind speeds hit 300 kilometers per hour. Temperature differentials created pockets of void and pressure that slammed into the shuttle like fists. Ice crystals filled the air, billions of them, each one a tiny blade scraping against the hull. The shuttle shook, hard, alarms screamed, warning lights painted the cabin red. Losing sensor array, Bora called out. She worked her controls, trying to compensate. Switching to backup. No, wait, backup's gone too. The ice is shredding everything external. Flying blind then, Yoonjae said. Her voice was calm, but her knuckles were white on the controls. Just like training, except worse. The shuttle dropped. The atmospheric density changed suddenly, and they fell 300 meters in 2 seconds. The restraints cut into shoulders. Equipment groaned. Something in the rear compartment broke loose and crashed against a wall. T-Min checked his readouts. Hull integrity at 82%. We're losing heat shielding on the port side. I see it, Yoonjae said. She adjusted their angle, trying to keep the damaged section away from the worst of the friction. The shuttle spun slightly, and the world outside the windows became a blur of white and black. Another impact. The shuttle bucked sideways. A massive pressure differential, a pocket of nothing in the middle of the storm. They tumbled, and for 3 seconds no one knew which way was down. Yoonjae fought the controls. She didn't panic. She never panicked. She had learned to fly in Earth's worst weather, had brought damaged ships home through conditions that would ground any sane pilot. This was worse, but only by degree. Come on, she whispered to the shuttle. Come on, stay with me. The ship leveled out, barely. They were through the worst of the upper atmosphere, dropping toward the surface. The altimeter spun down, 10,000 meters, 8,000, 5,000. I need a landing site, Yoonjae said. Jinwoo. Jinwoo was already working. His screen showed the terrain below, what the damaged sensors could still detect. The colony is here. We can't land close. The ice is too unstable. Best spot is 2.3 kilometers northeast. It's relatively flat. Relatively. Good enough, Yoonjae said. She brought them down. The shuttle screamed in protest. One engine was running hot, another was cutting in and out. The heat shielding on the port side was gone, and the cold was starting to seep through. But Yoonjae held it steady, fought every gust and shift, and put them on the ground with a crunch of ice and a final shudder of failing systems. They sat in silence for a moment, then Di-ho unbuckled. Damage report. Bora was already checking. Port engine is gone. Heat shielding is compromised in 3 sections. We'll need repairs before we can launch. I can do it, but not in this cold. We'll need to warm the components. How long? For everyone, multiple trips. 4 hours minimum per trip plus loading time. We're looking at 12 to 16 hours total, and that's if everything goes perfect. Di-ho nodded. Then we don't waste time, let's move. They suited up. The thermal gear was heavy, built for the worst Earth had to offer and then reinforced. Heating elements, insulated layers, oxygen systems that could handle the cold, helmets with multiple backup systems. Each suit weighed 40 kilograms, and that was before they added the emergency supplies. Outside, Kethai's 7 waited. The cold hit them like a wall. Even through the suits, they could feel it. Negative 180 degrees, cold enough to freeze carbon dioxide, cold enough to turn normal materials brittle as glass. The ice beneath their feet was hard as steel, and the wind cut through the air like a knife. Temperature readings confirmed, T-Min said. His voice came through the helmet radio. We're good for 6 hours in these suits. After that, we'll need to warm up or we risk system failure. Then we move fast, Di-ho said. They loaded the supplies onto sleds. Heavy-duty, designed for ice work. Food, water, oxygen tanks, medical equipment, heating units, repair tools. Everything the Velthrons would need. Everything they might need. The sleds weighed 200 kilograms each, but in the heavy gravity, they felt like 300. Jinwoo checked his mapping system. This way, stay in formation, watch for crevasses. The ice shifts constantly. They walked. The galaxy watched them walk. For most species, this would have been death in minutes. The cold would stop biological functions. The gravity would crush respiratory systems. The terrain would be impossible to navigate. But humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had learned to survive heat and cold, high pressure and low, thin air and thick. They had learned to keep moving when everything said to stop. So they walked. The ice beneath them was beautiful and terrible. It caught the light from Kethai's 7 distant sun and split it into colors, blues and whites and pale greens. But every step could be the one that broke through, that dropped them into a crevasse that went down forever. Jinwoo led them on a path that wound between danger zones, his scanner beeping warnings, his experience reading the ice. An hour passed, too. The colony was still a kilometer away. Then they found the crevasse. It stretched across their path, a wound in the ice that was 50 meters wide and impossible to see the bottom. The mapping system showed it was new, opened in the last day, probably from the same seismic activity that had damaged the colony's systems. We can go around, Jinwoo said, but it'll add 2 hours, maybe more. Di-ho looked at the gap, at the darkness below, at the ice walls that looked like they might collapse any second. He checked his chronometer. The Velthrons had less than 60 hours of oxygen left. Every minute mattered. We cross, he said. Jinwoo nodded. He had expected that answer. He pulled out rope and anchors, equipment that had crossed glaciers on Earth that had saved lives in places with names like K2 and Denali. He and Bora worked together, their movements practiced. They drove anchors into the ice, tested them, drove more. They strung rope across the gap, building a bridge system that would have made any engineer nervous. It'll hold, Bora said, probably. Good enough, Di-ho said. They crossed, one at a time, pulling the sleds. The rope swayed in the wind, the ice groaned beneath them. Halfway across, a seismic tremor hit, small, barely a shiver in the ground, but enough. The ice walls of the crevasse shifted, cracks appeared, pieces fell into darkness. T-Min was in the middle of the bridge. He froze, waiting for the rope to snap or the ice to give way. It held, just barely. He started moving again, faster now, and made it to the other side. Everyone across, Jinwoo confirmed. Let's keep moving. The colony appeared ahead, a cluster of buildings half buried in ice. Lights flickered in some windows, others were dark. It looked fragile, like a strong wind might blow it away. Di-ho activated his radio, switching to the colony's frequency. Research Station Kethai 7, this is Commander D-Ho. Human Rescue Team, we're at your door, we're getting you out. The response came immediately. The voice was weak, disbelieving. You're here, you came. We came, D-Ho said. Open the airlock, let's get to work. Behind them, the galaxy watched in silence. The humans had made it through the atmosphere. They had crossed the impossible terrain. They had reached the colony. Now came the hard part, getting everyone out alive. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of frozen air. D-Ho stepped through first, his thermal suit still coated with ice. The others followed, pulling the sleds of supplies. Inside, the colony was dark except for emergency lighting. The cold had seeped through the walls. The human breath clouds were visible even inside their helmets. The Velthrons waited in the main chamber. 37 of them huddled together in groups. Their silver skin had turned dull gray. They wore every piece of clothing they owned, wrapped in blankets and emergency thermal sheets. 4 small ones, the younglings, were in the center of the largest group, surrounded by adults trying to share warmth. T-Min immediately began scanning them. His medical equipment painted readouts in the air. They're hypothermic by their standards. Their core temperature should be around 38 degrees Celsius. Most of them are down to 32. The younglings are at 30. We need to get heat into them now. Bora, D-Ho said. She was already moving. She pulled out the portable heating units, military-grade equipment designed to warm field hospitals in Arctic conditions. She placed them around the room and activated them. Within minutes, the temperature began to rise. Not much, but enough. The Velthrons started moving closer to the heat, like flowers turning toward the sun. The colony director approached. Her name was Vila. She was older, her movements slow with cold. You came. The council said no one would come. The council was wrong, D-Ho said simply. Vila's eyes filled with something that might have been tears, though it was hard to tell with Velthron biology. Why? Why would you risk this? D-Ho looked around at the frightened faces watching him, at the younglings who were too cold to understand what was happening, at the researchers who had accepted death and now saw hope. You called for help, he said. That's enough. Bora finished setting up the heaters and moved to check the colony's systems. She disappeared into the maintenance tunnels, her tools clanking. Jinwoo helped T-Min distribute emergency rations and warm fluids, carefully chosen for Velthron biology. The colonists drank carefully, warming their hands on the containers. D-Ho pulled up the colony schematics on his wrist display. He studied the structure, the failing systems, the cracks in the walls. He didn't like what he saw. The cold had made the construction materials brittle. The seismic activity had stressed the joints. Another major tremor and the whole place might come down. Bora returned, her face grim. Boss, we have a problem, multiple problems. The life support is completely gone. The heating system is destroyed. The structure itself is failing. I can't fix this. Not in time, not in this cold. How long does the building have? With the current rate of deterioration, if we get another seismic event like the last one, this place is coming down. Could be hours, could be minutes. D-Ho made the decision quickly. We evacuate, everyone now. Vila overheard. But your shuttle, can it carry all of us? In these conditions, safely, D-Ho shook his head. We can fit maybe 30 people per trip. That includes weight for supplies and equipment. We'll need multiple runs. How many runs? 3, maybe 4. Vila looked at the chronometer on the wall, counting down their oxygen supply. We don't have time for 3 runs. We'll make time, D-Ho said. We're taking the most vulnerable first. The younglings, anyone in critical condition. They go on the first shuttle, T-Min. The medic was already assessing. He moved through the crowd, checking vital signs, marking people on his display. 4 younglings, obviously. Then I've got 8 adults in serious condition. That's 12. We can add a few more who are less critical, bring it to 16. That leaves 21 for the next 2 trips. Do it, Di-ho said. Yoon-jae, Jinwoo, you're taking the first group. Get them to the shuttle, get them warm, get them stable, then come back for the next group. Yoon-jae nodded. She had removed her helmet in the slightly warmer air of the colony. Her face was set and determined. How long for each round trip? Jinwoo checked his mapping data. 4 hours, maybe 5 with the sick and younglings moving slowly, and that's if the route stays clear. If new crevasses open up, we'll need more time. Then move fast, Di-ho said. Every minute counts. They prepared the first group. The younglings didn't understand what was happening. They were scared, cold, confused. One of them, a small female named Hana, clung to her mother and refused to let go. The mother wasn't in critical condition. She wasn't on the first transport list. Please, the mother begged, don't separate us. Min looked at Di-ho. They had weight limits, rules, priorities, but they also had a crying child who was terrified. She goes, Di-ho said, make room. They bundled the first group in every thermal blanket they had. Yoon-jae and Jinwoo led them to the airlock. The younglings rode on the sleds now, wrapped like small packages. The adults walked, supported by the 2 humans when they stumbled. The group disappeared into the ice and wind. The airlock sealed behind them. Di-ho, Min, and Bora stayed with the remaining 21 Velthrons. They worked to keep everyone warm, stable, calm, but the colony was failing around them. Cracks appeared in the walls. Frost crept across surfaces. The emergency lights flickered. A researcher named Nethier approached Di-ho. He was young, probably early in his career. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. The council said the conditions here would kill any rescue team. They said it was impossible, but you came anyway. Why? Di-ho was quiet for a moment. On Earth, we have a lot of dangerous places. Oceans that can swallow ships, mountains that kill climbers, deserts that burn in the day and freeze at night. We've learned something from living in those places. What? That sometimes survival isn't about being strong enough or smart enough. It's about refusing to give up, about seeing someone in trouble and deciding that's your problem now. Di-ho looked at the Velthrons huddled around the heaters. You called for help. That made it our problem. But you could die here. Yes. And you came anyway. Yes. Nethier was silent, processing this. Finally, he said, I don't understand your species. Di-ho smiled slightly. Most days we don't either. 4 hours passed. 4 hours of waiting, of hoping the building would hold, of watching the oxygen counters tick down. Then the radio crackled. Boss, this is Yoon-jae. First group is secure. Younglings are warming up, everyone's stable. We're heading back. Copy that, Di-ho said. Relief washed through him. Nice work. But then everything went wrong. The seismic event hit without warning. The ground shook, hard. The colony's structure groaned and several Velthrons screamed. Cracks split across the ceiling. Chunks of ice and frozen construction material fell. A support beam twisted and snapped with a sound like thunder. Di-ho grabbed the nearest Velthrons and pulled them away from the falling debris. Bora did the same, her enhanced strength from Earth's gravity letting her move 2 adults at once. Min covered 3 researchers with his own body as ceiling panels crashed down where they had been standing. The shaking stopped. The colony was still standing, but just barely. Half the lights were out. A massive crack ran across the main chamber. Through it, they could see the ice outside and the black sky beyond. We need to leave, Bora said. Now, this place won't survive another one of those. But Yoon-jae and Jinwoo were still out on the ice, coming back for the second group. If they evacuated now, the remaining Velthrons would have to make the journey on their own. In their weakened state, in the terrible conditions, many wouldn't make it. Di-ho checked his oxygen supply, checked the colony's structural integrity, checked the chronometer counting down the time until the Velthron's oxygen ran out. Every number was bad. Every calculation said they were out of time. He made another decision, the kind that his superiors would hate and his crew would understand. Team in, check everyone's oxygen levels, all of us, humans and Velthrons. Team in understood immediately what D-Ho was thinking. Boss, if we share our reserves. Check the levels, D-Ho repeated. Team in ran the numbers. Each human had 8 hours of oxygen in their tanks. Each Velthron was down to 4 hours or less. There were 21 Velthrons and 3 humans in the colony right now. If we redistribute, Team in said slowly, if we give them our oxygen and keep only what we need for the next few hours, we can buy everyone enough time to get to the shuttle safely. But we'll be running on fumes. Any delays and we're in trouble. Do it, D-Ho said. Boss. Do it, D-Ho repeated. He looked at Bora. She nodded. You're not leaving them, I get it. They explained to the Velthrons what they were going to do. There was protest, disbelief, fear. A human named D-Ho, whom they had met only hours ago, was going to give them his oxygen. Him and his crew. They were going to risk their own lives to buy time for strangers. Why, Nethir asked again, why would you do this? Bora connected her oxygen tank to the colony's distribution system, watching her reserves flow away. Because you needed help, she said simply. And because on our world, we learned a long time ago that survival means nobody gets left behind. Ever. They shared the oxygen. The Velthrons' readouts improved. The humans dropped to dangerous levels. Now they were all in this together, all dependent on getting to the shuttle in the next few hours, or everyone would die. Outside, in the ice and wind, Yunjai and Jinwoo fought their way back to the colony. They didn't know yet what their crew had done. They didn't know their entire team was now living on borrowed time. They just knew they had more people to save, and nothing was going to stop them. Yunjai and Jinwoo reached the colony 90 minutes later. They were exhausted, ice-covered but moving. They cycled through the airlock and immediately knew something was wrong. The way D-Ho and the others looked. The way the Velthrons watched the humans with something like awe mixed with fear. What happened? Yunjai asked. D-Ho showed her the oxygen readings. Hers and Jinwoo's were still good, full tanks from the shuttle. His, Teemin's, and Bora's were in the red zone, critical levels. You gave them your oxygen, Yunjai said. It wasn't a question. We bought time, D-Ho said. Now we need to use it. We take everyone, all of us. One trip, no one gets left behind. Jinwoo was already calculating. That's 24 people total. 21 Velthrons, 3 humans with low oxygen plus me and Yunjai. The sleds can carry supplies and anyone who can't walk. But boss, in these conditions with that many people. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. We make it work, D-Ho said, because there's no other option. They prepared to leave. The Velthrons who could walk were bundled in every piece of thermal equipment they had. The weakest were loaded onto sleds with heating units. The humans distributed weight carefully, knowing that in the heavy gravity, every kilogram mattered. Vila approached D-Ho one more time. If we slow you down, she said quietly, if we become a danger to you, you should leave us. Not happening, D-Ho said. But your oxygen. We'll make it, we always do. They left the failing colony behind. 24 people moving through a frozen hell, connected by ropes, driven by necessity. The galaxy watched through the helmet cameras. The feeds were being broadcast across hundreds of worlds. Beings who had never seen humans work watched them pull sleds through ice, support stumbling Velthrons, check on the younglings every few minutes. The first hour went smoothly. They made good progress. The route Jinwoo had mapped was clear. The weather was as calm as it ever got on Kethai 7, which meant the wind only hit 100 kilometers per hour, and the temperature was merely deadly instead of impossible. Then the storm came. It appeared on the horizon like a wall of white, moving faster than anything that size should move. Jinwoo saw it first. We need shelter, now. But there was no shelter, just ice and more ice. They were in the middle of nowhere, still a kilometer from the shuttle. "We keep moving," Deho said. "Stay together, stay on the rope, don't let go no matter what." The storm hit them like a physical force. Visibility dropped to 0 in seconds. The wind screamed. Temperature readings dropped another 20 degrees. Ice crystals filled the air, billions of tiny knives that found every gap in the suits, every weakness in the equipment. The Velthrons began to fail. They weren't built for this. Their species had evolved on a warm world with gentle weather. This was beyond their biology. One of the adults, an older male, collapsed. T-Min caught him, checked his vitals. Hypothermia. Severe. "Can't stop," T-Min muttered. He lifted the Velthron onto his shoulders, carrying the full weight despite his own exhaustion and depleting oxygen. "Keep moving." Another Velthron fell. Bora grabbed her, pulled her up, kept her moving. The younglings were crying, terrified by the wind and the cold and the darkness. Their caretakers tried to comfort them while barely managing to walk themselves. Yunjai led from the front, her navigation system barely functioning through the storm. She kept them on course by instinct and experience, by feeling the ice through her boots, by reading the wind patterns that would have meant nothing to any other species. Behind her, the group struggled. The rope connecting them became a lifeline. When someone fell, the others held them up. When someone's legs gave out, someone else carried them. Human carried Velthron. Velthron supported Velthron. They became a single organism, fighting to survive. Deho monitored everyone's vitals on his wrist display. The numbers were bad and getting worse. The Velthrons were losing body heat. The humans were running out of oxygen. Bora's reading was the worst. She had given away more than the others, had pushed herself harder. Her tank was almost empty. "Bora," Deho said over the private channel, "your oxygen." "I know," she said. She was carrying 2 of the Velthron younglings now, one on each shoulder, shielding them from the wind with her own body. "I'm good." "You're not good, your tank is." "I said I'm good, boss." Her voice was strained but firm. "These kids need to get out, that's what matters." Then the ground opened up. The seismic event was smaller than the last, but it was enough. A new crevasse split the ice ahead of them, directly in their path. Jinwoo, who was checking the route, almost fell in. He caught himself at the edge, his ice axe biting into the frozen surface. "Stop," he shouted. "Everyone stop." They halted at the edge of a fresh wound in the ice. It was 15 meters wide and impossibly deep. The sides were unstable, already crumbling. Their route was blocked. Jinwoo checked his mapping system. "We need to go around, that's 30 minutes, maybe 40. 40 minutes. Deho checked the oxygen readings again. Bora had 30 minutes left. Maybe. The other Velthrons weren't much better. Some of them wouldn't make 40 minutes. "We cross," Deho said. "Boss, the ice is unstable. We can't bridge this, not safely, not with this many people." "Then we make it unsafe. We cross anyway." It was madness. Every calculation said so. But madness was what humans did best. Jinwoo and Yunjai worked together. They drove anchors into crumbling ice. They strung rope across a gap that could swallow them all. They built a bridge that would make any engineer quit their job rather than certify it. "This is stupid," Jinwoo said as he worked. "Completely stupid," Yunjai agreed. They crossed anyway, one at a time. Humans first, making sure the bridge would hold. Then Velthrons moving carefully, some of them needing to be carried. The younglings went in groups, tied together, with a human on each end to steady them. Halfway through, the ice shifted. The anchor points groaned, pieces fell into darkness. The rope sagged dangerously, everyone froze. "Keep moving," Deho ordered. "Slow and steady, keep moving." They moved. The rope held. Barely. When the last Velthron crossed and the last human pulled the equipment over, Jinwoo looked back at the bridge and shook his head. "We're never telling anyone we did that." "Agreed," Yunjai said. They pushed forward into the storm. Bora's oxygen was critical now. T-Min tried to offer her some of his, but she refused. "You need it for the Velthrons, I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Her movements were slowing. Her breathing was labored. She still carried the two younglings, refused to put them down, but it was taking everything she had. Then through the storm, Jinwoo saw lights, the shuttle. They had made it. 200 meters, he called out. "We're almost there." Those last 200 meters felt like 200 kilometers. Bora stumbled, caught herself, stumbled again. The younglings on her shoulders were warm, safe, protected by her body heat while her own systems failed. "Come on, Bora," T-Min said, moving to support her. "Come on, almost there." She took another step, another. Her oxygen gauge was reading 0. She was breathing vacuum and frozen air, her lungs burning, her vision tunneling. But the younglings, she had to get the younglings to the shuttle. 50 meters, 25, 10. Bora collapsed at the shuttle door. T-Min grabbed her and the younglings. Yoonjae got the door open. Everyone piled into the shuttle, a mass of frozen bodies in desperation. The door sealed. The heating system kicked in. Oxygen flooded the cabin. T-Min ripped Bora's helmet off. She wasn't breathing. He started emergency procedures, forcing air into her lungs, checking her heart rate, working with the desperate efficiency of a combat medic who had seen too many people die and refused to lose another. The Velthrons watched in horror. This human, this stranger who had crossed a galaxy to save them, had given everything. Her oxygen, her warmth, her life. T-Min worked 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. Bora gasped. Her eyes opened. She sucked in air like a drowning person breaking the surface. "The younglings," she whispered. "They're fine," T-Min said. His voice was shaking. "They're fine, you got them here, you got everyone here." Bora looked around the shuttle, at the Velthrons all alive, at her crew exhausted but alive, at the younglings warming up safe. She smiled slightly. "Good," she said, and passed out. Yoonjae was already in the pilot's seat. Everyone strapped in. Too bad, we're leaving anyway. The shuttle's engines fired. They were damaged, barely functional, running on backup systems and willpower. But they fired. The shuttle lifted off HFY 7, climbing through the storm, through the deadly atmosphere, through conditions that had been declared impossible. On board, 37 Velthrons and 5 humans held on as the shuttle shook and rattled and fought its way to orbit. The engine screamed. The hull groaned. Alarms sounded for systems that were failing or already failed. But they climbed. They kept climbing. And as they broke through the upper atmosphere and reached the silence of space, the galaxy watching through their cameras understood something they hadn't before. Humans didn't succeed because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced. They succeeded because when someone needed help, when someone called out in darkness, humans answered. No matter the cost, no matter the odds. They answered. The shuttle limped toward the council station, carrying 37 saved lives and 5 humans who had risked everything to save strangers. Behind them, HFY 7 continued its frozen orbit, empty now except for the abandoned colony that would stand as a monument to what had happened there. To the moment when someone called for help, and Deathworlders took it seriously. The council station's medical bay had never been so busy. Doctors and medics from a dozen species worked frantically on the humans and Velthrons. Bora was in critical condition, her body temperature dangerously low, her lungs damaged from breathing near vacuum. The other humans were exhausted and injured but stable. The Velthrons were hypothermic but alive. All 37, all alive. Hiren stood outside the medical bay, watching through the windows. She had been there since the shuttle docked 3 hours ago. She had watched them carry Bora out on a stretcher, watched her brother walk out under his own power, watched the younglings being rushed to warming units. She couldn't stop crying. She had accepted death. They all had. And then the humans came. Inside the bay, T-Min refused to leave Bora's side. He monitored every machine, every readout. The Velthran doctors were good, but they didn't know human biology the way he did. He corrected dosages, adjusted treatments, made sure they understood that humans could survive more than their equipment suggested. "Her core temperature is rising," one of the doctors said. "Slowly but rising, I think. I think she'll make it." "She'll make it," T-Min said. There was no doubt in his voice. "She's too stubborn not to." Across the bay, Di-Ho, Yunjai, and Jinwoo were being examined. They had refused treatment until the Velthrans were stable. Now, finally, they let the doctors check them. Exhaustion, dehydration, minor frostbite, bruises and strain from carrying weight in heavy gravity. Nothing that wouldn't heal. A Velthran doctor approached Di-Ho. "You shouldn't have survived that," she said quietly. "The conditions, the oxygen depletion, the storm. By every calculation we have, you should have died on that moon." Di-Ho shrugged slightly. "Calculations don't account for stubbornness." "Is that what you call it, stubbornness?" "We call it a lot of things. Stubbornness, determination, not knowing when to quit." He smiled slightly. "Back home, we have a saying, it's not about being fearless. It's about being more afraid of living with yourself if you don't try." The doctor stared at him, trying to understand. Finally, she just shook her head and went to check on other patients. 3 days passed. The humans recovered. Bora woke up on the second day, complained about the food, and tried to get out of bed before T-Min forced her to lie back down. The Velthrans recovered faster, their biology responding well to warmth and oxygen. The younglings were the first to fully bounce back, running around the medical bay and drawing pictures with the art supplies someone had given them. On the third day, the Galactic Council convened again. This time, the chamber was packed. Every species wanted to be there. The rescued Velthrans were present, including the younglings. The human crew was there, Bora in a wheelchair because T-Min still wouldn't let her walk unsupported. The entire galaxy watched the broadcast. Hiren spoke first. She stood at the podium, her silver skin bright with health now, and looked at the council. "3 days ago, I stood in this chamber and watched you declare my brother and his colleagues irrecoverable. You said no one could reach them. You said the conditions were impossible. You were planning memorials while they were still alive." The council members shifted uncomfortably. "And then," Hiren continued, 5 humans heard the distress call and said, 'We're going in.' They didn't ask for permission. They didn't run calculations on acceptable losses. They didn't debate. They just went. And because they went, 37 people who were dead by your calculations are alive." She stepped aside. Vila, the colony director, took her place at the podium. She was older, moved slowly, but her voice was strong. "I want to show you something," she said. The screens around the chamber lit up. Footage from the colony, from the helmet cameras, from the shuttle. The galaxy had seen some of it, but not all. Not the moment when Di-Ho gave his oxygen to the Velthrans. Not the moment when Bora carried the younglings through the storm while her own systems failed. Not T-Min treating injuries with almost no supplies. Not Yunjai flying through conditions that no pilot should survive. Not Jinwoo building bridges over darkness with barely any equipment. The footage showed all of it. When it ended, the chamber was silent. Vila spoke into that silence. "You called them Deathworlders. You said they were reckless, dangerous, unpredictable. You were right. They are all of those things, but they're also something else. Something we forgot we could be." Nethier stood up from the audience section. "They're willing," he said. "That's the word their commander used. Not stronger, not smarter. Willing. Willing to try when everyone else has given up." One of the Velthran younglings, Hana, held up a drawing. It showed stick figures. 5 of them were bigger, wearing suits. One of them was carrying smaller figures. At the top, in careful letters, she had written, "The warm giants who carried us through the cold." A Minrathi council member spoke. Her voice was thoughtful. "We have spent centuries optimizing our civilizations, making them safer, more efficient, more rational. We calculate risks and make decisions based on probability matrices. and by those standards the human rescue was irrational. It shouldn't have worked. But it did work, another council member said. Yes, it did, because humans don't optimize for safety. They optimize for something else. For responsibility, for moral obligation. I'm not sure we have a word for it. D-Ho had been quiet through all of this. Now he spoke. We call it doing the right thing. The council turned to look at him. On Earth, D-Ho continued, we have a lot of ways to die. Whether that can kill you in minutes, animals that hunt us, diseases, disasters. Our world tried to kill us for millions of years, and we survived. But we didn't survive alone. We survived because when someone in the tribe was in trouble, everyone else helped. Even if it was dangerous, even if it was hard, because survival meant taking care of each other. Yunjai added, you asked why we came. You've been trying to understand it, but there's nothing to understand. You sent a distress call, we heard it, we came, that's all. But the risk, someone started. The risk is irrelevant, T-Min said. He was standing next to Bora's wheelchair. You don't calculate whether to help someone, you just help. That's what being part of a community means. That's what being part of a galaxy should mean. Bora, still weak but recovering, spoke quietly. You've built amazing civilizations. You've created incredible technology. You've achieved things we can't even imagine yet. But somewhere along the way you forgot something simple. When someone calls for help, you answer. Not because it's safe. Not because it's easy. Not because the math works out. You answer because they need help and you can give it. Jinwoo leaned forward. You called us Deathworlders like it's a warning, like we're dangerous. Maybe we are, but maybe that's what the galaxy needs sometimes. Someone who will go into the dark places. Someone who will take the risks you won't take. Someone who remembers that advanced civilization doesn't mean abandoning each other when things get hard. The council was silent for a long moment. Finally, the council leader spoke. The ancient being's voice was soft. You are right. All of you are right. We have become so advanced that we forgot what advancement is for. We forgot that civilization exists to protect its members, not to calculate acceptable losses. A Porvathi delegate drifted forward. This rescue has been seen by billions. It has changed conversations across 100 worlds. Species are questioning their emergency response protocols. They are asking why we didn't go, why we couldn't go, why we didn't even try. Good, D-Ho said. You should ask those questions. Over the next weeks, things began to change. The Nethics started training emergency response teams for extreme conditions. The Minrathi began developing equipment that could handle environments they had previously written off. The Porvathi established a network for sharing rescue resources across species. Other civilizations watched and followed. The Galactic Council established a new position, Extreme Environment Response Coordinator. They offered it to D-Ho. He turned it down. We're not coordinators, he said. We're responders. Keep us in the field where we can actually help. Instead, the humans agreed to train other species, to share their techniques, to teach what they knew about surviving in places that wanted you dead. Classes started within a month with volunteers from 30 species. Most of them failed the training. The conditions were too harsh, the requirements too demanding, but some succeeded, some learned, some understood. A memorial was built on Kethai 7, not for the dead as the council had planned, but for the rescue. A monument showing 5 figures in thermal suits carrying others through a storm. At the base, a plaque with 37 names, the ones who were saved, and 5 more names, the ones who came. Hiren visited it once, months later. She stood in her environmental suit, looking at the monument through the eternal storm. She read her brother's name. She read the humans' names. And she understood something that the council was still learning. An SOS wasn't just a signal. It was a test of what you valued, a test of who you were, a test of whether you had optimized yourself out of being part of a community. The humans had passed that test without thinking about it, because to them, it wasn't a test. It was just someone calling for help, and that was enough. Back at the Human Frontier Response Station, D-Ho and his crew had returned to duty. There were other calls coming in, other situations, other people who needed help. They prepared their shuttle, checked their equipment, reviewed the conditions they would face. Team Min looked at the mission data. This one's going to be rough too. They always are, Yunjai said. Think we can do it? Jinwoo asked. Bora, fully recovered now, smiled. Do we ever actually know if we can do it before we try? No, D-Ho said, but we try anyway, that's the job. They launched, out into the galaxy, toward people who needed help, toward conditions that calculations said were impossible, toward situations that others had written off as hopeless. They launched because someone had called, someone needed help, someone was counting on strangers to care enough to answer. And humans, those strange Deathworlders from the violent planet called Earth, had never learned how to ignore a call for help. They didn't calculate the odds. They didn't optimize for safety. They didn't debate acceptable losses. They just answered. The motto on their station's wall, visible to everyone who came and went, said it all. When you call, we answer. And across the galaxy, more and more species were learning what that really meant. Not superior strength, not advanced technology, not special abilities. Just the willingness to help, the refusal to leave someone behind. The simple, stubborn, entirely human idea that when someone needs help, you go. No matter what, no matter where, no matter the cost. You go. Because that's what it means to take an SOS seriously.